What if I told you that the moment when everything seems to fall apart, when the scaffolding you built your life upon begins to crack and splinter, when the relationships you thought were solid dissolve like sugar in water, when the work that once gave you purpose feels hollow, when even your own thoughts seem foreign to you? What if I told you that this is not a breakdown at all, but something far more intelligent, far more purposeful than your conscious mind can immediately recognize? Most people, when they find themselves in this space, believe they have done something wrong. They look around at the ruins of what was and think they have failed, that they took a wrong turn somewhere, that if only they had been more careful, more disciplined, more vigilant, they could have prevented this collapse. But what if the collapse itself is not the problem? What if the collapse is the answer to a question your deeper self has been asking for years? A question you could not hear because you were too busy maintaining, managing, performing, and surviving. There is something most people overlook, not because it is hidden in some esoteric text or locked behind years of spiritual practice, but because their attention has been trained, conditioned, almost hypnotized into looking outward. We learn early to measure our worth by what we produce, by how we are perceived, by the stability of our circumstances. We learn to fear stillness, to fear the absence of progress, to fear the spaces between words. And so when life strips away the external structures, when the noise quiets and the busyness stops, we panic. We reach for anything to fill the void. We scroll, we plan, we distract, we numb. We do not yet understand that the void is not empty. It is full of something we have not been taught to value. The presence of our own becoming. Sit with that for a moment. The presence of your own becoming. Not who you were yesterday, not who you think you should be tomorrow, but the living, breathing process of transformation that is happening beneath the surface of your awareness right now. You may not feel it as transformation yet. You may feel it as exhaustion, as confusion, as a kind of nameless grief that has no clear object. You may feel in your body a heaviness in your chest, a tightness in your throat, a sense that you are walking through water. You may feel it in your sleep, in dreams that are more vivid than usual, dreams where you are lost in unfamiliar cities, or standing in front of doors you cannot open, or speaking to people whose faces you cannot quite see. You may feel in the way you no longer laugh at the jokes that used to amuse you, in the way conversations that once energized you now leave you drained, in the way you find yourself staring out windows, not thinking about anything in particular, just staring. These are not signs of depression, though they may wear its clothing. These are not signs of failure, though the world may interpret them that way. These are signs that something deep within you, something older and wiser than your ego, has decided it is time. Time for what, you may ask? Time for a deep reset. Time for the psyche to dismantle what no longer serves the truth of who you are becoming, to clear away the accumulated debris of roles you have outgrown, identities you have borrowed, beliefs you inherited without question. The psyche does not ask permission for this work. It does not send you a memo or schedule a meeting. It simply begins, and you feel the effects before you understand the cause. Nothing that is happening to you right now is a coincidence. I want you to hear that again in a different way. The timing of this collapse, the specific things that are falling away, the people who are leaving, the opportunities that are closing, the sudden inability to care about things that once consumed you, none of this is random. It may feel random because you cannot see the pattern yet, because you're standing too close to the canvas, because the mind that is trying to make sense of it all is the very mind that is being reorganized. You cannot think your way out of this. You cannot strategize your way back to stability. This is not a problem to be solved. This is a process to be lived through, to be felt, to be witnessed with as much patience and compassion as you can muster. Carl Jung spent much of his life studying these moments, these thresholds where the conscious personality meets something larger, something that does not fit into the neat categories we use to organize our lives. He called it the unconscious, though that word can be misleading. It is not unconscious in the sense of being absent or inactive. It is unconscious only to the ego, to the part of you that believes it is in control, that believes it knows what it wants, that believes it can plan and predict and manage its way to happiness. The unconscious is actually more conscious than consciousness itself. It sees patterns your ego cannot see. It knows truths your persona has been trained to ignore. It speaks in symbols, in dreams, in symptoms, in synchronicities, in the strange and seemingly irrational events that puncture the surface of your carefully constructed life. When Jung went through his own period of collapse, after his break with Freud, after the loss of the professional identity and community that had defined him, he did not try to rebuild what had fallen. He did something far more difficult. He descended. He allowed himself to enter what he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. He engaged with the images, the voices, the figures that emerged from within. He did not dismiss them as madness, though others might have. He treated them as real, as meaningful, as messengers from a part of himself he had not yet integrated. And what he discovered in that descent became the foundation for everything he would later teach about individuation, about the self, about the process by which a human being becomes whole. You do not need to be a psychologist or a mystic to understand what he was describing. You only need to be honest about what you are experiencing right now. You only need to stop pretending that everything is fine, that you can hold it together just a little longer, that if you just push through this rough patch, you will get back to normal. Because the truth is, you're not going back. Normal was a story you told yourself, a role you played, a set of agreements you made with the world about who you would be and what you would want. And somewhere along the way, your deeper self, the part Jung called the self with a capital S, the part that is not your ego but the totality of who you are, that part began to outgrow the story. It began to push against the walls of the life you built. And when you did not listen, when you could not listen because you did not know how, it did what it had to do. It began to dismantle the structure from within. In this unfolding, I will share with you several signs, several inner shifts that indicate this deep reset is already underway. These are not instructions. They are recognitions. They are mirrors in which you may see your own experience reflected back to you. Not so that you can fix anything, but so that you can stop fighting what is trying to happen. So that you can stop interpreting your exhaustion as weakness, your confusion as failure, your grief as something to be medicated away. Each of these signs is a thread in a larger pattern. And as we move through them together, slowly, without rushing, you may begin to see that pattern not as a problem, but as an intelligence, a guidance, a kind of inner knowing that has been with you all along, waiting for you to stop long enough to listen. The first sign is a profound and often unsettling loss of interest in things that used to matter to you. Not a temporary boredom, not a passing mood, but a deeper, more existential withdrawal of energy from the pursuits, the goals, the relationships, the activities that once defined your days. You wake up and the to-do list that used to drive you feels absurd. The career milestones that used to excite you feel hollow. The social events that used to energize you feel like performances you no longer have the strength to give. You find yourself going through the motions, smiling when you're supposed to smile, nodding when you're supposed to nod, but inside there is a silence, a kind of inner refusal that you cannot quite explain. This is not laziness. This is not ingratitude. This is the psyche withdrawing its investment from the persona, from the mask you wear in the world. Jung understood that we all develop a persona, a social face, a set of behaviors and attitudes that allow us to function in our roles, to meet the expectations of family, culture, profession. The persona is necessary. It is how we navigate the world, but it is not who we are. It is a tool, a garment, a bridge between the inner and outer. And when the self begins to call you toward a deeper authenticity, toward a life that is more aligned with your actual nature, the first thing it does is drain the energy from the persona. It makes it impossible for you to continue performing in the old ways. You may try to force it. You may push yourself to care, to engage, to show up with the same enthusiasm you once had. But the energy is simply not there. And the more you push, the more exhausted you become. People around you may notice. They may ask if you're okay. They may express concern, or frustration, or disappointment. They may tell you that you have changed, that you are not yourself. And in a way, they are right. You are not yourself, not the self they knew, not the self you presented to them. You are in the process of becoming something more true, but that process requires a kind of death, a shedding, a letting go of the old skin before the new one can fully form. This is terrifying for the ego, which equates change with annihilation. The ego does not understand that you can die to one version of yourself and still be alive. It thinks that if you stop being who you were, you will cease to exist altogether. And so it fights. It generates anxiety, doubt, guilt. It tells you that you're letting people down, that you're being selfish, that you should try harder, care more, get back on track. But beneath the anxiety, if you listen closely, there is something else. A quiet knowing. A sense that this withdrawal is not a failure, but a necessity. That you cannot build a new life on the foundation of the old one. That something has to be cleared away first. You may not know yet what will replace what is falling away. You may not have a vision of the future, a plan, a new identity waiting in the wings. And that is okay. In fact, that is essential. The not knowing is part of the process. The emptiness is not a void to be filled as quickly as possible. It is a space of potential, a fertile darkness in which something new can begin to take shape, slowly, organically, without the interference of your ego's agenda. I remember a conversation I had once with someone who was going through this. She was a successful therapist, respected in her field, with a full practice and a reputation for being warm, insightful, deeply present with her clients. And then one day, she told me she woke up and could not do it anymore. Not that she was burned out in the usual sense, not that she needed a vacation or a change of pace. It was deeper than that. She said it felt like the person who had been doing that work, who had been showing up in that role, had simply left. She would sit with clients and hear herself saying the right things, asking the right questions, but inside she felt like a fraud, like she was lip-syncing to a song she no longer believed in. She was terrified. She thought she was losing her mind, or her calling, or both. She sought advice from colleagues, from mentors, from her own therapist. Everyone told her the same thing. Rest. Take a break. You were just tired. But she knew it was not tiredness. It was something else, something she could not name. What she was experiencing, though she did not have the language for it yet, was the psyche's refusal to continue operating from persona that no longer fit. Her identity as a healer, as someone who held space for others, had been built on a foundation of self-sacrifice, of putting her own needs aside, of deriving her worth from being needed. And for years, that had worked. It had given her purpose, structure, meaning. But at a certain point, the self, her deeper self, began to demand something different. It began to ask, what about you? What about your needs, your desires, your unspoken grief, your unlived life? And because she could not hear that question consciously, because she had been trained to see self-focus as selfish, the psyche took more drastic measures. It removed her ability to perform the role. It withdrew the energy that had been sustaining the persona. It forced her into a space where she had no choice but to stop, to turn inward, to face what she had been avoiding. This is what the loss of interest really is. It is not a symptom of something wrong. It is the psyche protecting you from continuing down a path that is no longer aligned with your deeper truth. It is the self saying, not this way, not anymore. And though it feels like loss, like failure, like a kind of death, it is actually the beginning of something far more alive, far more real. But you cannot rush to that aliveness. You have to honor the death first. You have to let the old self die, fully, without trying to resuscitate it, without clinging to the identity that is dissolving. This requires a kind of courage that is not celebrated in our culture, a courage to do nothing, to be no one, to sit in the discomfort of not knowing who you are or what you want. The second sign, closely related to the first, is a sudden and often overwhelming exhaustion that is not relieved by rest. You sleep, but you wake up tired. You take time off, but the fatigue remains. You go through all the physical checkups, and the doctors find nothing wrong, or they tell you it's stress, it is anxiety, it is something you need to manage better. But you know, deep down, that this tiredness is not physical, or not only physical. It is a soul tiredness. It is the exhaustion that comes from living out of alignment, from carrying roles and responsibilities that are no longer yours to carry, from pretending to be someone you're not, from suppressing the truth of what you feel and what you need. Jung spoke of psychic energy, libido in his terms, not in the sexual sense, but as the life force, the energy that animates us, that drives our interests, our passions, our engagement with the world. This energy is not infinite. It flows where it is needed, where it is valued, where it finds meaning. And when you're living a life that is not true to your deeper self, when you're investing your energy in pursuits that do not nourish you, in relationships that do not see you, in work that does not reflect your values, the energy begins to drain away. It is not that you are weak or broken. It is that the psyche is redirecting the energy inward, toward the work of transformation, toward the process of becoming whole. But because you are still trying to live your outer life as if nothing has changed, because you are still trying to meet all the old expectations and obligations, you experience this redirection as exhaustion. This exhaustion is a message. It is the psyche saying, stop. You cannot do this anymore. Not in the old way. Not from the old place. You need a rest, yes, but not the kind of rest that is just a pause before you resume the same patterns. You need a deeper rest, a rest that allows the old structures to fall away, that allows the energy to go where it is truly needed, which is inward, toward the reorganization of your inner world. This is why no amount of vacation or self-care in the conventional sense seems to help. Because what you need is not a break from your life. You need a break from the way you have been living your life, from the unconscious agreements you have been honoring, from the roles you have been playing. I have seen this exhaustion in so many people, and it often comes with a deep sense of shame. We live in a culture that worships productivity, that equates rest with laziness, that tells us our value is measured by our output. And so when we find ourselves unable to keep up, unable to perform, unable to generate the energy we once had, we feel like failures. We compare ourselves to others who seem to be thriving, who seem to have it all together, and we wonder what is wrong with us. Why can they do it and I cannot? Why am I so tired when I've not even done that much? Why do I feel like I am moving through mud when everyone else seems to be running marathons? But this comparison is a trap, because you do not know what is happening inside those other people. You do not know what they are suppressing, what they are avoiding, what price they are paying for their productivity. And more importantly, you are not them. Your psyche is on its own timeline, responding to its own imperatives. The exhaustion you feel is not a sign that you are weaker than others. It is a sign that you are being called to something deeper, something that requires you to stop performing and start listening. The tiredness is not the problem. The problem is the refusal to honor the tiredness, the insistence that you should be able to push through it, that you should be able to will your way back to energy and enthusiasm. What if, instead, you allowed yourself to be tired, not as a permanent state, not as an identity, but as a phase, a passage, a necessary part of the process? What if you stopped fighting it, stopped judging it, stopped trying to fix it? What if you simply acknowledged, I am tired, and I do not know why, and that is okay? What if you gave yourself permission to move more slowly, to do less, to say no to things that drain you, even if saying no disappoints others, even if it means letting go of opportunities, even if it means your life looks smaller for a while? Because the truth is, your life needs to get smaller before it can become truly yours. You need to clear away the excess. The obligations are not really yours. The relationships that are built on who you used to be, the goals that were never really your goals to begin with. This exhaustion is the psyche's way of enforcing that clearing. It is taking away your ability to continue as you were, not as punishment, but as protection. It is protecting you from a life that would ultimately destroy you, a life lived entirely on the surface, a life where you are so busy performing that you never have time to discover who you actually are beneath the performance. The tiredness is an invitation to stop, to turn inward, to ask the questions you have been too busy to ask. What do I actually want? What do I actually feel? What have I been pretending not to know? These questions cannot be answered in the midst of busyness. They require stillness, silence, space. And the exhaustion is creating that space, whether you like it or not. The third sign is a growing sense of disconnection from people you once felt close to. Friendships that were effortless now feel strained. Conversations that used to flow now feel forced. You find yourself withdrawing, not out of anger or resentment, but out of a quiet recognition that you are no longer on the same wavelength. You may try to bridge the gap, to explain what you're going through, but the words do not come, or when they do, they are not understood. People offer advice, encouragement, reassurance, but their words land on you like stones. They mean well, but they are speaking to the person you used to be, not the person you are becoming. And so you retreat. You cancel plans. You let messages go unanswered. You spend more time alone, not because you're depressed, though it may look that way from the outside, but because solitude is the only place where you do not have to pretend. This disconnection is painful. We are social creatures. We need connection, belonging, recognition. And when we feel ourselves drifting away from the people who have been our anchors, it can feel like we are losing our moorings, like we are floating untethered in a vast and empty sea. But what is actually happening is that you are outgrowing the version of yourself that those relationships were built upon. You are no longer the person who laughs at the same jokes, who cares about the same dramas, who finds meaning in the same conversations. And because your relationships were based on that old version of you, they no longer fit. They feel too tight, too constricting, like clothes you have outgrown. Jung called this the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming who you truly are, distinct from the collective, distinct from the roles and expectations that have been imposed upon you. Individuation is not about becoming isolated or superior. It is about becoming real. It is about shedding the false self, the persona, the adaptations you made in order to be loved, accepted, included. And part of that shedding involves a necessary separation from the people and communities that reinforce the false self. This does not mean you have to cut everyone out of your life. It means you have to allow the relationships to change, to evolve, or in some cases, to end. You have to trust that the people who are meant to stay will stay, and the people who are meant to leave will leave, and that both are okay. There is a deep loneliness in this phase, a loneliness that is not about being alone, but about being unseen. You are changing in ways that are invisible to others. You are grappling with questions that have no easy answers. You are feeling things you do not have words for. And when you try to share this with the people in your life, you are met with blank stares, or worse, with concern that feels like judgment. They tell you that you're overthinking, that you need to get out more, that you need to focus on the positive. And you nod and smile and say nothing, because you know they cannot understand, not because they are bad people, but because they are not where you are. They are still living in the world you are leaving behind. This is where the temptation to go back is strongest. The temptation to pretend you are fine, to put the mask back on, to rejoin the world as if nothing has changed. Because the loneliness is hard. The uncertainty is hard. The feeling of being misunderstood is hard. But if you go back now, if you try to force yourself back into the old connections, the old roles, you will only prolong the process. You will only delay the inevitable. Because the psyche will not let you rest until you have faced what needs to be faced, until you have let go of what needs to be let go, until you have become who you are meant to become. So instead of fighting the disconnection, what if you honored it? What if you saw it not as a loss, but as a necessary part of your becoming? What if you trusted that new connections will come? Connections that are based not on who you were, but on who you are becoming. Connections that can hold the depth and complexity of your inner life. Connections that do not require you to shrink or perform or pretend. Those connections are coming, but they cannot come until you have made space for them, until you have cleared away the relationships that are no longer in alignment. And that clearing requires you to be willing to be alone for a while, to be misunderstood for a while, to be seen as strange or difficult or too much. It requires you to value your inner truth more than your social comfort. I think of this as a kind of initiatory solitude, a rite of passage that almost everyone who goes through a deep transformation must endure. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are being given the time and space to discover who you are when no one is watching, when no one is expecting anything from you, when you are accountable only to your own inner voice. This is sacred time. It does not feel sacred. It feels lonely and confusing and sometimes unbearable. But it is sacred nonetheless, because it is in this solitude that you meet yourself, the self that has been buried beneath layers of adaptation and performance, the self that knows what you need, what you want, what you are here to do. The fourth sign is an increasing sensitivity to inauthenticity, both in yourself and in others. You can no longer tolerate small talk. You can no longer pretend to care about things that do not matter to you. You can no longer smile through conversations that feel empty. You become acutely aware of when you are performing, when you are saying what you think you should say rather than what you actually feel. And this awareness is uncomfortable because it reveals how much of your life has been performance, how much you have been living on autopilot, going through the motions without ever stopping to ask if this is what you actually want. At the same time, you become more sensitive to the inauthenticity of others. You notice when people are not being real, when they are hiding behind politeness, when they are saying one thing but meaning another. You notice the gaps between what people claim to value and how they actually live. You notice the ways people avoid difficult truths, the ways they distract themselves, the ways they perform their lives for an invisible audience. And this noticing is not judgmental, or it does not have to be. It is simply clear seeing. You are seeing through the masks, yours and theirs. And once you see, you cannot unsee. This sensitivity can make you feel like an outsider, like you no longer belong in the world you once inhabited. Social situations that used to be easy now feel exhausting, because you are aware of all the unspoken rules, all the performances, all the ways people are not saying what they really mean. You may find yourself longing for depth, for a real conversation, for someone who will meet you in the raw, unfiltered truth of what it means to be human. But those conversations are rare, and so you retreat further into yourself, into books, into nature, into silence, into the few relationships that can hold the weight of what you are experiencing. Jung understood that as you move toward individuation, as you become more conscious, you also become more alone in a certain sense. Not because you are rejecting others, but because you are operating from a different level of awareness. You are no longer content with the surface. You are no longer willing to pretend. And this unwillingness can be isolating, because most of the world is still operating on the surface, still invested in the personas, still playing the games. But this isolation is also a sign of growth, a sign that you are becoming more real, more true, more aligned with your deeper self. And as you become more real, you will naturally attract others who are also real, who are also willing to drop the masks, who are also seeking depth and truth and authenticity. But first, you have to be willing to stand in the discomfort of your own sensitivity, to honor what you are noticing without trying to fix it or change it or make it go away. You have to be willing to say no to the conversations and situations that feel false, even if that means spending more time alone. You have to trust that your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a gift, a guidance system that is helping you navigate toward a life that is more true, more aligned, more yours. The fifth sign is the emergence of dreams, symbols, and synchronicities that feel significant, but are difficult to interpret. You may find yourself having vivid dreams that stay with you long after you wake, dreams that feel more real than your waking life, dreams that carry a weight, a message, even if you cannot quite grasp what it is. You may notice patterns, coincidences, moments when the outer world seems to mirror your inner world in ways that feel too precise to be random. A book falls off a shelf and opens to a page that speaks directly to what you are struggling with. A stranger says something that echoes a thought you had just moments before. You keep seeing the same symbol, the same number, the same image, and you cannot shake the feeling that it means something, that you are being shown something, even if you do not yet understand what. This is the language of the unconscious, the way the deeper self communicates when the conscious mind is too busy, too defended, too rational to listen. Jung called these synchronicities meaningful coincidences that reveal an underlying order, a connection between the inner and outer worlds that cannot be explained by cause and effect. He understood that the psyche is not confined to the individual. It is part of a larger field, a collective unconscious. And when you are in a state of deep transformation, when the boundaries of the ego are softening, you become more permeable to this larger field. You begin to notice the connections, the patterns, the ways the universe seems to be speaking to you, guiding you, showing you the way forward. But this language is not literal. It is symbolic. It requires a different kind of attention, a different kind of listening. You cannot approach it with a rational mind, with the part of you that wants clear answers and concrete steps. You have to approach it with curiosity, with openness, with a willingness to sit with ambiguity. You have to ask, what does this image try to tell me? What does this dream want me to see? What is this synchronicity pointing toward? And you have to be patient, because the answers do not come all at once. They unfold over time, revealing themselves in layers, in whispers, in moments of sudden insight that cannot be forced. I remember a period in my own life when I kept dreaming of water, of being underwater, of struggling to breathe, of trying to reach the surface but never quite making it. At first, I dismissed the dreams as anxiety, as a reflection of the stress I was under. But they kept coming night after night, and eventually I realized they were not about anxiety. They were about something deeper. They were showing me that I was drowning in my life, that I was submerged in obligations and expectations that were suffocating me, that I needed to come up for air, to break through to the surface, to breathe. And once I understood that, once I honored what the dreams were showing me, they stopped. The message had been received. This is how the unconscious works. It does not give you a manual. It gives you images, feelings, sensations, and it trusts that if you pay attention, if you take them seriously, you will begin to understand. But most people do not pay attention. They dismiss their dreams as random noise, their synchronicities as coincidence, their intuitions as irrational. And so the unconscious has to speak louder, has to create more dramatic symptoms, has to orchestrate a collapse, because that is the only way to get the ego's attention, to force it to stop and listen. If you're noticing these signs, these dreams and symbols and synchronicities, it means the unconscious is trying to reach you. It means you are in a state of heightened receptivity, a state where the veil between conscious and unconscious is thinner. This is a gift, even if it feels confusing, even if it feels overwhelming, because it means you're being guided, not by some external force, but by the deepest, wisest part of yourself, the part that knows what you need, where you're going, what you are becoming. Your job is not to figure it all out, not to decode every symbol, not to force the meaning. Your job is simply to pay attention, to write down your dreams, to notice the patterns, to trust that the meaning will reveal itself when you're ready to receive it. The sixth sign is a profound questioning of beliefs and values you once held without doubt. Things you were taught as a child, things you accepted as true, things that formed the foundation of your worldview, suddenly seem questionable, even false. You may find yourself re-examining your religion, your politics, your ideas about success, relationships, morality. You may feel like you're losing your faith, losing your grounding, losing the certainties that once made life feel safe and predictable. And this can be terrifying, because if you cannot trust what you believed, if you cannot rely on the structures that once held you, then what can you trust? Where do you stand? Who are you without those beliefs? This questioning is not a crisis of faith, though it may feel like one. It is a necessary part of individuation, a necessary part of becoming your own authority. Jung understood that most of the beliefs we carry are not really ours. They are inherited, absorbed from family, culture, religion, media. We take them on without examination, without question, because that is what we are taught to do. We are taught to conform, to fit in, to accept the collective values as our own. And for a time, that works. It gives us a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, a framework for making sense of the world. But at a certain point, if we are to become whole, we have to question those beliefs. We have to ask, is this really true for me? Does this reflect my actual experience, my actual values? Or am I just repeating what I was told? This questioning can feel like betrayal, especially if the beliefs you are questioning are tied to your family, your community, your sense of identity. You may feel guilty for doubting, for stepping outside the fold, for no longer being able to accept what everyone around you accepts. You may worry that you are being arrogant, that you are rejecting wisdom that has been passed down for generations. But the truth is, you are not rejecting wisdom. You are discerning what is true for you, what resonates with your lived experience, what aligns with your deeper self. And that discernment is not arrogance. It is maturity. It is the willingness to take responsibility for your own beliefs, to own your own values, to stand on your own ground. This process is slow and often painful. It requires you to let go of the comfort of certainty, the safety of belonging to a group that shares your beliefs. It requires you to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, of being unsure, of holding questions without rushing to answers. It requires you to be willing to be wrong, to change your mind, to admit that what you once believed with your whole heart no longer feels true. And it requires you to trust that on the other side of this questioning, you will find something more solid, more real, more yours. Not a set of beliefs handed to you by someone else, but a lived truth that has been tested, examined, and chosen. I have watched people go through this, and it is never easy. I have seen people lose their communities, their families, their sense of identity, because they could no longer pretend to believe what they no longer believed. I have seen the loneliness, the grief, the fear, but I have also seen what comes after. I have seen people stand in their own truth with a quiet strength, a groundedness, a sense of integrity that was not possible before. I have seen them build new communities, new relationships, new lives that are based not on conformity, but on authenticity. And that authenticity, that willingness to be true to themselves even when it costs them, is what makes them whole. If you are in this questioning phase, if you are doubting the beliefs you once held, know that you are not losing yourself. You are finding yourself. You are shedding the layers of conditioning, the inherited scripts, the collective programming, and you are discovering what is real beneath all of that. This is sacred work. It is the work of becoming your own person, of claiming your own authority, of standing on your own 2 feet. It is the work the psyche is calling you to do. And though it is difficult, though it is lonely, though it is uncertain, it is also the most important work you will ever do. The 7th sign is a deep, almost physical need for solitude and silence. Not the kind of solitude that is about escaping people, but the kind that is about returning to yourself. You find yourself craving time alone, not to do anything in particular, but just to be, to sit, to breathe, to stare at the wall or the sky or the trees. You find that noise, even pleasant noise, feels abrasive. Music that you used to love now feels intrusive. Conversations, even with people you care about, feel draining. You need quiet. You need space. You need to be alone with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own inner world. This need for solitude is the psyche creating the conditions for inner work. Transformation cannot happen in the noise and busyness of everyday life. It requires stillness, spaciousness, time to process, to integrate, to allow the new to emerge. The psyche is pulling you inward, away from the distractions and demands of the outer world, so that you can attend to what is happening inside. And this is not selfish, though it may feel that way, though others may interpret it that way. This is necessary. This is how you heal. This is how you grow. This is how you become whole. But our culture does not value solitude. It values productivity, connection, engagement. It tells us that if we're not busy, not social, not constantly doing something, we are wasting time. It tells us that solitude is loneliness, that silence is emptiness, that turning inward is self-indulgent. And so when we feel this need for solitude, we often resist it. We fill our time with distractions, with obligations, with anything to avoid being alone with ourselves. Because being alone with ourselves means facing what we have been avoiding, feeling what we have been suppressing, hearing the truths we have been too busy to hear. But the psyche will not be denied. If you do not give yourself the solitude you need, if you do not honor the need for silence, the psyche will create it for you. It will make you too tired to socialize. It will make you too overwhelmed to engage. It will create circumstances that force you to withdraw, to be alone, to be still. And so the question is, will you choose the solitude, or will you wait until it is forced upon you? Will you honor the need before it becomes a crisis, or will you resist until the collapse is the only option? Choosing solitude, choosing silence, is an act of self-respect. It is saying, my inner life matters. My process matters. I'm not going to abandon myself in order to meet the expectations of others. I'm going to give myself the time and space I need to heal, to grow, to become. And when you make that choice, when you honor the need for solitude, you will find that it is not empty. It is full of insight, of feeling, of presence, full of the quiet voice of your deeper self, the voice that has been trying to reach you for so long, the voice that can only be heard in the silence. The 8th sign is a sense that time has changed, that the normal rhythms of life no longer apply. Days feel longer, or they feel like they are passing in a blur. You lose track of time. You forget what day it is. You find yourself moving more slowly, or feeling like you're suspended in a kind of timeless space where past, present, and future all blend together. This is not dissociation, though it may feel similar. This is the psyche stepping outside of linear time, entering what Jung called kairos, the time of the soul, as opposed to chronos, the time of the clock. In kairos, things do not happen according to schedule. They happen when they are ready to happen. Insights come when they come. Healing happens when it happens. You cannot force it, cannot rush it, cannot plan it. You can only be present to it, open to it, willing to let it unfold in its own time. And this is deeply uncomfortable for the ego, which wants to know when this will be over, when you will feel better, when you will get back to normal. The ego wants a timeline, a plan, a sense of control. But the psyche does not work that way. The psyche works in its own time, and that time is not measurable by clocks or calendars. This altered sense of time is a sign that you are in the depths of the process, that you are in the liminal space, the in-between, the threshold. You are no longer who you were, but you are not yet who you are becoming. You are in the chrysalis, in the dark, in the dissolving. And in that space, time does not move in the usual way. It stretches, it contracts, it loops back on itself. You may find yourself revisiting memories from years ago, feeling them as if they are happening now. You may find yourself having insights about events that happened long ago, suddenly understanding them in a new way. You may find yourself dreaming of the future or of alternate versions of your life, and waking up unsure which is real. This is the psyche reorganizing your relationship to time, helping you see that you're not just a product of your past, not just moving toward a predetermined future. You are a living, evolving being, and every moment is an opportunity to choose, to change, to become. The past is not fixed. It can be reinterpreted, reintegrated, healed. The future is not set. It is being created by the choices you make now, by the awareness you bring to this moment. And the present is not a fleeting instant between past and future. It is the only time that is real, the only time in which transformation can happen. If you're experiencing this altered sense of time, do not try to force yourself back into the normal rhythms. Do not worry that you are losing touch with reality. You are not. You are touching a deeper reality, a reality that is not bound by the constraints of linear time. Trust the process. Trust that when you are ready, when the transformation is complete, you will return to the world of clocks and calendars. But for now, you are in a different time, a sacred time, and your job is simply to be present to it, to allow it, to let it do its work. All of these signs, these inner shifts, are threads in a single process. They are not separate problems to be solved, separate symptoms to be treated. They are all part of the psyche's deep reset, the dismantling of the old self, the clearing of the ground, the preparation for something new. And though each sign may feel difficult, overwhelming, even unbearable at times, they are all intelligent. They are all purposeful. They are all part of the psyche's effort to bring you into alignment with your deeper truth, with the self, with who you really are beneath the roles and masks and adaptations. Nothing that is happening to you is random. The timing, the intensity, the specific ways your life is falling apart, all of it is part of a larger pattern, a larger intelligence. The psyche knows what it is doing, even when you do not. It knows what needs to fall away, what needs to be cleared, what needs to be faced. It knows how much you can handle, how far you can go, how deep you need to descend. And it will not take you further than you can go. It will not break you. It is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to free you, to liberate you from the prison of the false self, to bring you home to who you really are. But this process requires your participation, not your control, not your management, but your willingness to be present, to feel, to witness, to allow. It requires you to stop fighting, stop resisting, stop trying to make it all go away. It requires you to trust, even when you cannot see where you are going, even when you feel lost, even when you are afraid. It requires you to honor the collapse, to see it not as failure, but as initiation, not as ending, but as beginning. And so I invite you, as you move through this, to practice a few simple things. First, notice. Notice what you are feeling, what you are thinking, what is happening in your body. Do not judge it. Do not try to change it. Just notice. Second, write down your dreams, your thoughts, your questions. Write without censoring, without trying to make sense. Just let the words flow. Writing is a way of externalizing the inner process, of giving it form, of making it visible. And third, sit. Sit in silence, even for just a few minutes a day. Sit without distraction, without agenda. Just sit and breathe and be. Let the silence hold you. Let it show you what you need to see. These practices are not about fixing anything. They are about creating space, about honoring the process, about staying connected to yourself in the midst of the collapse. They are about remembering that you are not alone, that you're being guided, that this is not happening to you, but for you. And as you practice these things, as you bring awareness and presence to